two things greatly influenced my life. When I was in high school, I fell in and out of love my last year. I was so devastated. I began to question, was life worth living? These were the kind of thoughts that came to my mind. I asked the question, what is love? How can I ever trust a mate? I was so devastated. It had a dramatic impact on the way I trusted and the way I looked at people. The second incident that transformed my life was my first year of community college. I was at a friend's house with a bunch of college students. And we were sitting there in this room, and I was sitting near the fireplace. And there were about 20 or 25 people in the room. And I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, I began to see every thought that everyone was thinking in the room. When I looked at a person, I could see greed or lust. I could see all these characteristics, and I saw how their faces were almost distorted, characteristic of that kind of nature. And I looked around the room, and everybody was the same. And then I said, oh, that's me. That's me. I said, I cannot be no different than them. And then I sat there, and a voice inside me said, God exists. God exists. I was so bewildered, I went home that afternoon. And I stayed home that evening. I did not run around with my friends. And I was sitting there. And my parents always kept a Bible on the table, the coffee table, but I never read it. But I picked it up and I turned to the Gospels and I started reading them. And Jesus impressed me when I began to read about, he said, I am the truth, the way, and the life. What does it profit you if you gain the whole world but suffer the loss of your own soul? Those words struck my heart. He said you have to love other people, even love your enemy. And I said, this man knows something I don't know. And I said, I want to be like Jesus. I want to be like him. And so, that day changed my life. I began to read no one converted me. I just began to read the Bible every day. And I would ride my bike in the countryside. And I would pray. And I would say, God, Jesus, please give me an answer. I would go to Bible studies. And I would study, and then people would talk about the end of the world. And how people would get boils and die and all kinds of horrific things. And I said, God, I can't believe in you if this is what you do. I went to a Pentecostal church and they all prayed over me. And they started speaking in tongues, but I didn't speak in tongues. Unlike some of our Japanese sisters who speak Japanese, and then when they go to a revival, they speak Japanese and they're speaking in tongues. I've had that happen. But I had Jehovah's Witnesses come to my home and we would read the fall of Babylon. And the more I studied, the more I got confused. And I was really looking, so I finally went away from my junior college to the San Jose State University. Then one day, in the fall of 1971, I went to the bookstore to buy a typewriter ribbon. Oh, you don't know what a typewriter is, do you? I'm sorry. Actually, I won't explain. So I was looking for a ribbon, and there was this girl who was next to me, and she had the biggest smile on her face. And she was looking for something, and she was grinning. And so I turned to her and I said, "Why are you so happy?" And then she said, "Because I live in this community, and we're going to create this ideal city up in the mountains in Northern California." Maybe you all heard of Boonville. Well, that's what it was, Boonville. So she invited me to the local center, and I got to say, when I came to the local center, it wasn't what I expected. I had long blonde hair and a big black beard. And these people were so straight looking. But you know, I loved what they said. And so I signed up for the workshop 2 weeks later to go to San Francisco. And also I had an ulterior motive. My friends were going to the Who concert that evening. So after the workshop, that's where I was going. But actually, that workshop changed my life. It was not an in-depth study of the principle. But the thing that touched me was about Jesus' life. That he wanted to create the kingdom of heaven on earth. That lecture brought me to tears. And in the end of the workshop, I was going around hugging everybody. Christina Morrison was there. The brother named Inchan. These young people they were older than me at the time, but they were my heroes. I went around and hugged them. And I'm not necessarily a hugger, but I love them. I was so excited, I was crying and everything. And then they had to take me to the Who concert. But you know, my mind wasn't even on the Who concert. Even though they burn the guitars and do all kinds of theatrics on stage, I was so engrossed by what I had experienced that all I did was try to talk to my friends about it. I went back to the university. I told my professors, I said, I'm going to join this group in San Francisco. I found the people that I want to be with. And then I told them, I'm going to leave school. I'm going to try to finish all my classes. So try to help me get good grades. And so then, on January 1st, 1972, I showed up in San Francisco. I'd loaded up my Volkswagen with everything I owned. And I said, I'm ready to move in. And the two young men, or the brothers there, said, we don't have any room. I was so disappointed. So I had to scramble, and I finally found some people to live with, some parents of friends of mine in my hometown. Brothers and sisters, that's my testimony. That was 40 years ago today, this month, brothers and sisters.